useState is used to declare a variable with a value and then redeclare the variable again with another value, aka updating the variable. This functionality is done using the three components of a typical useState statement in the code. A typical structure of a useState statement includes a constant to declare or to identify the following on what it actually is, or telling the code on what it actually is. So in this case, you're telling the code that, okay, the following is the constant. And what constants that we are declaring is one, the variable that we are playing around with. And then the next one is the way to update the variable. The second variable is typically named using set something. So if your variable is name, then the second variable will be set name, for example. So you can think of the second value like a function where you put the updated value you want to update the original value with. The second value of the constant is used using a brackets. So when you call it or want to update the value of the original value, you call it using set blah 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 brackets, then the updated value you want the original value to update to. And then after declaring the variables or constants, it will be the equal sign. Then after the equal sign will be the useState hook with brackets. Inside the bracket, you will store original values of the constant or the variable that you are playing around with. So for example, if you put like count, then you could put the original value as 0. Inside the bracket, you can put like a number, you can put a text or the string using the quotation marks, and then you can also put boolean such as true or false, or you can also put null if there's no value or no original value. You can put empty array, for example a square bracket, or you can also leave it empty if you want to. The original value that you put inside the bracket is typically used to help define the type of your value that you put inside the variable. So for example, let's say you want to put numbers inside a variable, then the value of the original number they put inside of the bracket will be the number. Then if you want it to be a text, you put the original value in the useState with the quotation mark so that it knows that, okay, the things that you are putting inside will be text. Sometimes it will produce an error if there is not a text, if the original value that you put inside the useState brackets is the text or with the quotation mark. When we first run the component file, the useState will run. useState will first declare the variable with the original value that you put inside the brackets. So let's say you put constant, then the first variable will be count, then the second variable will be set count with both value inside the square brackets, then equals to useState with a bracket. Inside the bracket you put 0. So when React run that file, the useState will run, which means that first the React will set the original value of the count to be 0, which is what you put inside of the bracket in the useState hook. And then after that you can use the variable inside of the UI, which will display the original value that you put inside of it. So if let's say the original value is nothing, then it will show nothing. Then if you put like something like 0, then the UI will show 0. Then when you want to increase the original number from 0 to 1, for example, when the user press the plus button, then in the button component, you set the onPress props, which means that when the user press the button, the onPress will be activated. And then inside of the onPress props, you put the set count or set whatever, which is the second value in the useState, then put it inside of the onPress props, which means that when the user press on the button, for example, this will activate set count equals to blah blah blah. But what is the blah blah blah? Is to increase the number by 1. Then the bracket inside of the set count will be 1. So when the user press the button, and then the UI will update the count variable to 1 using the set count variable from the useState. Let's say you want to increase or decrease a count when the user press the plus or minus button. At the top you put the useState sentence in the code. So the first part will be constant, then the square brackets, then the two components where the first variable will be the count variable, and then the second variable will be the set count to update the count variable, something like a function. Then after that will be the equal sign, then the useState with the brackets, where inside the brackets you put the original value of the count variable. To then update the count when you increase or decrease the count is to first have a button that have onPress props, which means that you will do something when the user press on it. Then after that, inside of it, you will have a function, an arrow function, where you have no parameters, and then you set count to count plus 1, which means that the code will take the original value of the count from the top and then plug it up and put it inside the set count. Then after that, you will add 1 to the original count, and then you will set count to the updated value, which is the whole thing here, and then this will set count and update the original count at the top using useState. So now in this case, when the user press the button, this will then set count to count plus 1, which is 1. So 1 will be the updated value of the count variable. And then you can do the same for decrease, for example. Again, same idea, when the button is pressed using the onPress props, this will then run a function which set count to count -1, which will take the count variable from the useState statement and then -1 from it. This will then be updated using setCount function from the useState to update the previous count value to the updated count -1, which in this case, if the count is 1 that we increased earlier, it will be decreased to 1 to return back to 0. It is something like declaring a value or redeclaring a value using a normal way, where you put constant, then the variable, then equals to the value that you want the original value of the variable to be. Then at the bottom, you can update the value when the user press a UI, for example. But the difference between the normal way of updating a value versus the useState to update the value is that useState will update the UI to show the updated value when the useState happens. But for normal redeclaration, the component doesn't re-render, or the UI doesn't re-render to show the updated value. But for useState, when the useState happens, the UI will re-render again and update to show the updated value of the variable that you show in the UI. So yeah, this is how useState works. Anyways, that's my opinion. Bye.